Hello and welcome to our top 8 here at Grand Prix Brussels. We've had a fantastic weekend. If you've had a chance to join any of us during the Swiss rounds, welcome back. For all of you that haven't, welcome, because we have some real talent in this top 8. The big story, Rally the Ancestors, Esper Dragons, Jace decks are absolutely everywhere in this top 8, and we're going to get a chance to see kind of the iconic matchup in this top 8 being Rally the Ancestors, Esper Dragons. Magnus Lantto was leading from the front the entire way. At no point did he drop a match that mattered. He was only starting to lose once he'd already locked up top 8. Lukas Blohon on Esper Dragons snuck in with a draw with teammate Ondrej Stradsky in the very last round of the event. Based on what we've seen so far, this seems like a great one for Rally, but Gabriel Nassif, how do you see this match going?
Yeah, Rally has definitely been favored throughout the tournament, but Lukas Blohon's had a lot of practice. He lost to Magnus. I think he actually defeated one of the Rally decks he played against in day 2. But I think if anyone can do it, it's Lukas. He has the tools. It's an uphill battle, but he has the tools. He can win, and he does have a lot of practice. I think he played against the deck at least 4 times this weekend. So we'll see what happens. They both have a Jace on turn 2, so good start for both of them. I'd say Magnus probably a bit advantage. I think Jace more important in his deck than in Lukas' deck.
It's interesting because Jace serves quite a different role for these two decks, because for Magnus Lantto's Rally deck, he doesn't have so many spells to flashback. He's more about using the looter to get things in the graveyard. Already 3 cards in the graveyard, having discarded 1 copy of Rally the Ancestors, another one lurking in his hand, and using Sidisi's Faithful as an unsummon that also gets a creature in the graveyard, so that Lukas Blohon's copy of Jace isn't going to be active as fast as his own.
And we see Magnus using a Faithful just to bounce Lukas, slowing him down. That might mean he has a Collective Company in hand, hoping Lukas taps out to play the Jace and he gets a shot at resolving a main phase Collective Company. So let's see what happens. He could also just have played it because Faithful is pretty low impact card in the matchup anyway, so he feel like the use he gets of it is good enough. He gets to flip Jace faster too. This way it's not prone to a removal spell. That might be one of the reasons he used a Faithful right away.
So yeah, it's turn 4, and this the point where the Rally decks get to start playing scary spells. Many of the creatures kind of underwhelming in the Rally deck on their own. It's more about the synergy that happens when you get lots of them in play at the same time. Collected Company and Rally the Ancestors both instants, so there's a lot of opportunity to cause all sorts of trouble for opponents by playing them at awkward moments, inopportune moments. There's a Rally in the graveyard, there's a Rally in Magnus Lantto's hand, and it looks like is there a Collected Company as well?
There's a Windswept Heath probably getting Forest, and yeah, the ideal play for Magnus would be a Collected Company, obviously.
Yeah, Collected Company, a great way of increasing the velocity of this deck. At any moment, it can pay 4 mana, search the top 6 cards for a pair of creatures and put them into play. Every creature in this deck costs 3 or less, so it's a prime target for
Jace, Sifter, Husk. So he has at least 2 decent hits in the Sifter and Husk. He can get a
Grim
second
Harrispect as well.
Wow.
Grim Harrispect's great against control, because it simply means that you might well be the better deck at drawing cards than the control deck, and that's not what the control deck wants to see ever. Nantuko Husk, kind of key to comboing out. There's already an Nantuko Husk in the graveyard. Why it's important? Well, it lets you sacrifice creatures, and there are lots of different ways of getting useful triggers off creature death in this format, and indeed in this deck.
Yeah, Magnus was Husk and the Grim Harrispects. Grim Harrispects is great. At the same time, sometimes it can be kind of a blank, because if Lukas gets rid of it right away, it doesn't have a come into play effect. Didn't provide any card advantage, but worst case scenario, he sacks it to the Husk in response to a complete disregard, for instance, and he has it in his graveyard for future Rally the Ancestors.
So utter end on Jace there. a timely utter end, because if he hadn't been able to remove that Planeswalker that turn, a flashback collected company is kind of a disaster for the Esper Dragons deck if it resolves.
Yeah, but we see Lukas already super far behind. He let Magnus untap with a Grim Harespect, a Husk, 4 lands, and a bunch of cards in hand. So Lukas, despite having like a reasonable draw, turn 2 Jace, bounce, turn 3 Jace, turn 4 other end, I feel far behind in a rough spot already. And Magnus didn't even do like anything special really. He just cast his cards, and here comes the rally. He's going to provide massive card advantage.
Here comes the first rally.
Yeah, the first rally. Yeah.
Now, the important thing about rally, you do want to have a sacrifice outlet in play when you play it, assuming that you're not going to win the game that very turn, because at the end of turn, any creatures returned by rally do get exiled, and in exile, exactly where you do not want your creatures for this deck.
It's actually next upkeep, but same difference.
But yes, it's worked out here that Nantuko Husk able to attack in for a little bit extra, Grim Harespect's able to draw Magnus Lantto some extra cards.
Exactly, kind of a value rally. Just draw 2 cards, bounce your Jace, and get in 4 extra damage for the Husk.
Not bad for your 5 mana instant.
Yeah, and depending on what Magnus draw, Lukas might be in chum block mode. The Husk only threatening 4 damage right now, but let's say Magnus had a Cutthroat and a Sifter, for instance. That might just be the 13 damage Magnus needs. We see a Visionary, a Jace. I'm not sure what Magnus has in his hand.
Visionary and Jace, of course, not a bad start.
Yeah, he's going to lead with Visionary, see what's going on. Visionary, oh no, he has the Sifter, even better. Sifter first.
2 creatures in the 1 card there. You don't get to draw a card when the Scion token dies, because your Grim Harespect only triggers off creature death, as opposed to non-token creature death. There we go. But I'm sure that Magnus Lantto won't mind too much. He's Nantuko Husk, very scary indeed here.
Yeah, he already has like massive card advantage to his disposal, and we see him sack Sifter to the Husk. So that's a 4/4 Husk. He can potentially be 6/6, 8/8, 10/10. So Lukas not yet obliged to block it. He says, sure, take it. Magnus thinking about sacking more guys. He's probably gonna pass. He might sack the Jace if he already has the tool he needs in hand.
I mean, next turn he would be able to flip the Jace and definitely cause all sorts of bother with that Rally the Ancestors in the graveyard. As it is, he says, I'm not going to kill you this turn, I'm going to keep my resources, there's nothing to stop me doing more later.
Yeah, Magnus in no rush. There's nothing really insane Lukas can have, like Crux of Fate, fine, like sweeps the board, but Magnus gets to draw a bunch of cards, and Lukas has to tap out to play that spell, so that's not too worrisome. Yeah, I mean, there's spot removal is pretty expensive in Lukas' deck. It's 3 mana for complete disregard or 4 mana for other end. Foul Tongue on Invocation, not the best right now. So Lukas just has to do the best he can and hope Magnus just doesn't have those business spells.
Yeah, it's pretty rough when you're playing either, depending on how you look at it, the aggro deck that simply does not care if your opponent plays mass removal, or the combo deck that can also attack and beat people up a little bit, so it doesn't really care that much if you counter some of its big combo cards.
Here's the Crux of Fate, the lone Crux of Fate in Lukas Blohon's deck. So Magnus gonna get to draw 2 cards, and now Lukas did the job. He just has to hope that Magnus doesn't have the follow-up rally or a bunch of backup creatures, but odds are Magnus has the tool he needs.
And he's already used 2 rallies. There's a rally in exile, a rally in the graveyard. So the third rally, a little unlikely, but at the same time, he's been drawing lots of cards, so he'll definitely have creatures. His deck is predominantly creatures.
Here's this Visionary Sifter, so nothing too scary.
Yeah, if Lukas Blohon had to draw up what he was hoping to happen with that turn, it probably wouldn't be far off what he envisaged there.
Yeah, that's almost best case scenario for Lukas. So yeah, he slowed down Magnus, got rid of the Jace, got Ojita in play, and was that one Crux of Fate might just be enough. Looks like Magnus ran out of gas.
Yeah, Lantto's hand featuring a large amount of fetch lands, and while that's all lovely bit of poetry there, everything rhymes very neatly, it doesn't necessarily lead to a winning board state for Magnus Lantto. Cracks in for 4. And a foul tongue invocation in hand for Lukas Blohon must be a little bit tempting.
Yeah, full grip, a lot of blue cards too, not exactly sure what he has, but game on looking good for Lukas.
Also an Ojitai's command there, so he has the option of countering a creature, gaining some life.
Yeah. You see him rearranging his mana, getting the 4 mana ready. So does he want to gain 4 or does he want to draw a card? Looks like he's going to gain 4. He's happy with his grip. Wants to get out of reach of maybe a cutthroat and pass. So Magnus looking down at 2-turn clock. Down to 1.
A single life left for the Swede. So this turn, there's a lot of things that he can do that are very powerful. The big question for him is going to be how much permission is in Lukas Blohon's hand.
Yeah, and then we can assume he has at least 1 or 2 counterspells since he decided to gain 4 life instead of drawing a card.
And a problem that Lantto faces, I don't believe that there's Zulaport Cutthroats currently in the graveyard, and that the card that means that it's easy to win in spite of not having the ability to attack. As it stands, Magnus Lantto's attack potential next turn not so big. If he wants to get out of this, he's going to need, amongst other things, Zulaport Cutthroat.
Yeah, Cutthroat. Maybe start with a rally and then draw into the Cutthroat by sacking a few creatures, but I'm not sure he's going to have the luxury of accomplishing any of that.
So this looks like a draw step scry in the hopes of finding what he needed.
There's a scoop. He didn't find what he needed, and even if he did, I think Lukas was ready with the counter spells.
A little shake of the head there for Magnus Lantto. Plenty of faces in the crowd trying to peek in and see what they can about what's going on with this matchup. Lantto was pretty much at table 1 I first saw him at table 1, I think, in round 6, and he more or less lived there for the rest of the tournament. We're going to get a chance to jump across and see our next match, though. In case you are wondering how this matchup goes, we have a little bit more of almost exactly the same matchup. On the left of our screen, that's Simon Nielsen. He's playing the same 75 as Magnus Lantto. Andrzej Straczki, teammate of Lukas Blohon. His Esper Dragons list, not a perfect match for the one that Lukas Blohon is playing, but certainly the overall strategy very similar.
Yeah, there's a few card difference. He has a second copy of Crux of Fate, for example. Some slight variations, not many.
It looks like we may have already had a Crux of Fate in this game 1. Plenty of creatures in Nielsen's graveyard. Not too many spells in Andrzej Straczki's.
Yeah, looks like the game's going good for the Esper player. Lone Elvish Visionary on Simon Nielsen's side. And assuming that's an end of turn dig free time, Andre is going to get to untap in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, one of the tricky bits as a viewer for this matchup is that as much as it looks great for Straczki right now, an almost empty board is kind of where he wants to be. In practical terms, if there's creatures in the graveyard, there's a lot of velocity from the Rally the Ancestors deck of Simon Nielsen to turn that around pretty quickly. Yeah,
unresolved collected company followed by a rally, for instance. We've seen that scenario multiple times in future matches this weekend. The rally deck just looking in a bad spot and kind of coming back from nowhere.
But Rich Hagen has entered the coverage area. Rich, can you give us an update on some of the other tables?
Well, only one, which is the Antonio Castellani Ataka Red against Bart Van Etten with Abzan. This is quite a grindy game, all in all. Van Etten looked to be coming back into things. He got a pretty decent board position down. At one point, he had 6 creatures in play. including 4 potential blockers. But Castellani went very wide, lots and lots of goblins needed more tokens out of the box, just didn't have enough. And eventually, because he was so wide, it meant when he went for the attack, not enough blockers, and the old Teamer battle rage become immense, all that good stuff, and Castellani leads 1-0 over Bart van Etten.
A modern classic there. The Ataka Red taking down game 1. Still in game 1 over here for Simon Nilsson versus Andrei Stradsky. The way that the Esper Dragons deck tends to win is it won't do a huge amount in the early game, but once it starts attacking for chunks, it gets through those chunks fairly fast because the Dragons, they know how to attack.
Yeah, you're usually doing fine when you're attacking with the Dragonlord Oge die every turn. And Simon, not too sure what both players have in hand. Looks like Andre has maybe another copy of Dig and a Dragonlord Silumgar, along with a third spell. So doing fine. We don't really know what Simon has right now. Oh, here's the rally. 2 rallies. 2 copy of rally?
2 copies of rally is kind of the ideal number. It means you get to play 1 at the end of turn. If it doesn't resolve, you get to untap and try again in your own turn. The big question is, does he have the right mix of creatures in the graveyard that this rally is going to be good enough? We'll find out soon enough.
Looks like it's good enough anyways. And no counter spell right away. Andre, who has to dig first.
And he's digging for a 2-mana counter specifically. One of the strengths, of course, of Esper Dragons is that it does get to run Silumgar's Scorn as a 2-mana hard counter. He may well also have access to the likes of Negate. Let's see if we can just dig up his list here and see what his realistic options are.
Oh, and I think he's showing him the second rally and telling him, look, man, I've got you dead on board. Yeah, that's what happens. It was end of turn rally. He's like, yeah, even if you find a counter spell, you only have 2 mana up. I'm just going to cast another rally and you're dead to it. So got the scoop from Andre there.
Good stuff. So we've seen Rally win 1. We've seen Esper Dragons win 1, albeit not in the same match. Let's jump back to our first match. Magnus Lantto against Lukas Blohon. Turn 2 Jace for Lantto. Turn 2 Jace for Blohon.
Yeah.
We saw how this went in game 1. Let's see whether or not it's going to be the same in the second one.
And exactly what we're talking about, the rally deck who seemed behind this game. Andre starting to chain dig 3 times, but the rally deck just had the spells to punish Andre, and from a seemingly bad position took game 1.
Well, it looks like Magnus Lantto has both Collected Company and Rally the Ancestors in hand. A couple of copies of Rally, so he's able to discard one of them.
Yeah, and we actually saw something pretty rare. Maybe the first time I've seen it all weekend is the Rally player lose a game where he had an unchecked Jace followed by a resolved Collected Company. And despite all that, Magnus still dropped the game.
Looks like there's just been a brief moment, something that we just wanted to double check with the judge. We'll see if we can find out what that was for you. It looks like there's a check card there, a checklist card that should have been in Magnus Lantto's deck. And in fact,
is that going to be a game loss?
Side.
Wow.
Well, we'll see soon enough. It's definitely an awkward position. A little sort of shrug and a handshake there from Magnus Lantto. He accidentally presented a 59-card deck.
Wow. Do you not pile shuffle your deck to make sure you have a 60-card deck at this level of play? That seems... Wow.
Unfortunate exit
it's a
there
rough
for
way
Magnus
to go.
Lantto.
After it's the curse of the undefeated player. I feel like most of the time people who go undefeated just run out in the quarters. Ugh.
And an unexpected boon there for Lukas Blohon. So we are going to be able to go back to our other match, effectively the same kind of match, only admittedly with Simon Nilsson ahead a game of Andrei Stradsky. So Rally doing okay there. Players just finishing up sideboarding, shuffling up. We'll get a chance to see their game too.
Oh, that was super brutal.
Yeah. If there's a lesson to learn here, folks, it's before you present your deck, as much as pile shuffling isn't shuffling in a traditional sense, one thing that it does do very effectively is it lets you check the number of cards in your deck. It's easy to think with the checklist cards, you look at it and you think, oh, it's kind of like a token, it's not really the same as a card, but while it's in that sleeve, while it's in your deck, it absolutely is a card in your deck. So if you present 59 cards when you're meant to be playing constructed with 60, that is an illegal deck, and the ruling for that is pretty straightforward at this level. You're getting a game loss, and a game loss when you're game down in the top 8 of a GP, well, that's you out of the tournament.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. And I wonder what happens if you have a 60 card deck and 14 sideboard cards, and that's your 15 sideboard card. Is it also a game loss? Because I didn't actually check to make sure you had 59 cards.
I mean, it always used to be you needed to have 15 or 0 for your sideboard. I believe that these days you are allowed to sideboard up to being a larger
to
deck.
61 or 62, yeah.
At which point, as long as you present a legal deck, i.e. a 60-card deck, it's okay. That's something that we can check with the judges, though, of course. Neither of us judges, we don't want to lead you down a garden path there. What we do know for sure is presenting a 59-card deck, definitely not what you want to be doing. And what we see both Simon and Andrei Stradsky doing a little bit here, one of the little benefits of being in top 8, in addition to the seeding, meaning that you can determine who goes first rather than simply rolling a die, is you have access to the full deck list of your opponent, and that can lead to some strategic decision making in terms of exactly how you sideboard, and maybe a couple of little variations in terms of how you actually play.
Yeah, we can take that moment to take a look at the deck list in the sideboard. So most likely coming in for Simon Nielsen's is 2 Duress, 2 Dispel, and 2 Absent Ascendancy. The rest of his sideboard is 4 Murder Scots, 4 Arishan Cleric, and 1 Valor Stance. Valor Stance not the worst card either. It gets rid of a Dragonlord Ojutai or Dragonlord Silumgar. Probably shaving some numbers of cards like Sidisi's Faithful, Elvish Visionary, pretty low impact card in the matchup. Maybe Zulaport Cutthroat. Yeah, probably kind of tricky to board. As it is with most combo decks, you usually have your engine, all your cards are working together. It's not like when you're playing Abs and you have like debt removal spells or low impact cards in some matchups. But yeah, maybe a bunch of Sidisi's Faithful being boarded out, and Andrei Stradsky's actually came ready. I don't know if it was for if he had the 4-color rally deck in mind, but he has 2 copies of Infinite Obliteration in his sideboard, whereas most as per control decks only have 1 copy. And card is great in the matchup if you can get rid of all the husks. The rally deck has a really rough time performing as well, and your removal spells becomes way more effective.
And it wouldn't surprise me at all if there was a little bit of chat between these two about how their respective teammates' match just ended. Lessons to be learned for all of us there. Simon Nielsen, though, focusing on the game at hand. Nielsen, part of the Danish World Magic Cup winning team from last year. The very distinctive player, always with his tie on with assorted badges, including the I've played a Pro Tour Hall of Famer. I don't know if that was you, Gab, or one of the various other Hall of Famers that have played at GPs.
I think I do remember
lately.
Someone wearing a tie at the Magic tournament, so I don't think it was me.
But for this one, Andrei Stradsky will be on the play, or he certainly at least has the option. I'd imagine that he'll take it.
Yeah, it looks like he's in the tank. Not super happy with the 7-card land. That's 4 lands, an ultimate price, dig free time, and an Ojutai. Seems like a reasonable hand. Oh, maybe he was just thinking about which land to play. Alright, yeah, because I think he was just thinking if he should be playing Shambling Vents first, or if he wanted to fin his deck and play fetch land turn 1.
Yeah, sequencing can get pretty tough for those sorts of decks because you have the puzzle of where you want to be in relation to your basic lands and your Battle for Zendikar lands later in the game.
Not only that, but also, is it worth finning my deck of 1 land because I don't want to draw? I want to reduce the chance of drawing a land compared to the risk of maybe having a land come into play tapped a turn where I really need it to come into play untapped. So it's kind of, you have to rely on your instincts because obviously it's all math, but it's like pretty complicated math that you can't really do on the spot. It's just like you've played so many games and you start getting a feel for those kind of things, what's right, what's wrong.
Yeah, I was talking to Martin Mueller about how the puzzle about which lands to fetch goes for the rally deck, because the rally deck runs 15 fetch lands and is trying to get 4 colours, including double white, but it wants double white around turn 5, and he says it's always a puzzle, it's just a matter of experience. That's the reason I put in as many games with this deck as I have. You need to just get a feel for your priorities, and broadly speaking, the priorities are to get your blue, black and green mana first, and then once you have those 3 colours fairly steady, which means you can cast almost your entire deck, then whenever you get a chance to fetch some white mana sources, so that from turn 5 onwards, Rally the Ancestors is at least a threat.
Simon Nielsen turn to Jace, so good start for him.
And reveals 2 Collected Company off that duress. So no extra action beyond Collected Company for Simon Nielsen, though obviously he'll hopefully get a chance to improve on that with Jace.
And I think Andre's ready was the ultimate price. Unless I've mistaken the card for another spell, but if he has ultimate price for Jace,
he does have ultimate price.
So that's a pretty decent start for him. Simon's not going to be able to cycle all those extra lands. He does have Collected Company, so maybe he can get that to resolve. And big draw step for Simon. Looks like another land? Nope.
Grim Haruspeck's there, the draw. Grim Haruspeck's on its own one of the less scary cards from Abzan, from the Rally the Ancestors deck. It's only really once you have other creatures that are going to die that it becomes a powerhouse. You get to draw extra cards and so on. So for now, Straczky, I wouldn't be surprised if he was thinking, well, that could have been worse. What he really wants here is going to be the ability to stop Collected Company next turn.
I'm not sure he has it, though.
Rally the Ancestors the draw, but at the moment Rally not quite fully powered. A swing for 3 and a question, I guess. Do you just run out the Collected Company now and hope that he doesn't have counter magic, or do you wait for him to tap for something?
You at least say go, see if he digs end of turn, which he's going to do, and you either play it on Andre's upkeep or even on his end of turn. So Simon's going to let him resolve the dig so that Andre doesn't have the info of which creature he gets for the company, but surely we're going to see Simon take advantage of the opening.
He's eyeing up his lands there, saying, yes, I have a green mana.
Yeah.
Yes, I have 3 other sources of mana.
Andre know it's coming, though, so he can try and plan for it, but still going to be he's still probably going to be in a rough spot depending on what Simon hits.
Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. The top 6 are going to get looked at all too soon.
So maybe something like Husk and Grim Haruspeck is ideal for Simon Nielsen.
Cascoon Sifter potentially also a nice one. You get an extra creature. You get to scry a bit before you do your first draw.
Sifter is definitely decent, and we see at least a Sifter and Sifter Grim. So that's a good Crux of Fate insurance.
Yes.
Gets to draw 4 cards and scry 4 times, scry 3 times if Andre has the Crux of Fate.
The scry does work off the token as well. And actually, something that came up yesterday, we discovered that even with Anafenza in play, you get to scry off tokens dying because of the way that Anafenza's worded. The creature tokens do briefly hit the graveyard and then get exiled or get removed because they're tokens, as opposed to creature cards, which go to the exile zone instead.
Andre taps out and Simon has a Rally in hand, has a Jace in the graveyard. No Husk though. No Husk yet. And he might, looks like he wants to attack, try to get some damage in, and if Andre blocks a creature, he at least gets to draw a bunch of cards.
Yeah, card drawing kind of where he wants to be at this point in the game, really. Doesn't quite have all the pieces he needs to be able to just win the game with a big combo. So a creature dying here actually kind of serves him fairly well. A non-token creature, that is.
Oh, and there's the husk. Wow.
All
I
right.
feel like it's almost a slow roll. Just maybe he was thinking if he should attack first, not give the info away. But so Simon in a pretty good spot right now.
He already has the rally.
And after sideboard, he has access to cards like Duress and Dispel. So his draws are, I want to say the quality of his draws is a bit better because he has a lot more specific cards which he wants to scry to. So Andre is really in a tough spot right now, not too sure what he's hoping for. Even Crux of Fate means he's left with at most 1 mana up. Andre does have 1 copy of Dispel in his sideboard, which he probably brought in. So ideally he'd like to Crux and have a Dispel backup, but I'm not sure that's an option. Yeah. Critical turn, pivotal turn for Andre.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the other thing that would be all right would simply be having a lot of counters in hand, but that also doesn't seem to be the case here. Goes a look in on the top after attacking with his Dragon Lord there.
Yeah, a lot of counters in hand is fine, but he is dead. He is facing a 2-turn clock on Simon's side right now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what happens if someone casts Catacomb Sifter? That's an extra 4 points of damage. But Rich Hagen, you're here with some more information for us. Lay it on us. What have we got?
We have a semi-finalist for you, and it is not Bart Van Etten with Abzan. It is Antonio Castellani with Ataka Red by 2-0. Basically just dealt with everything Van Etten could muster in terms of defense. The last 3 turns, hit you for 4, hit you for 4, hit you for 4, and petered away to a comfortable victory for Antonio Castellani. So Ataka Red is through to the semi-final, and if the bracket is correct, by my reckoning, he plays the winner of Nielsen Strasky.
Fantastic stuff. Thank you very much. That's the bracket I have also. So we'll get a chance to see Rally against something different next round. I mean, ultimately, we knew that there were going to be 2 Esper Dragon Rally matches this round. We also knew that next round Esper Dragons would either be in or out, and we get a chance to see something a little bit different. So we're going to get some variety in this top 8 for you.
Yeah, Andre decided to ultimate price one of the 2 Grim Harspecks, play a Shambling Vent, and pass the turn. Simon got to scry a bunch, draw a card. Now he's attacking. He resolved the Jace before attacking. And looks like he passed the turn.
Yeah, Andre in kind of a funny spot here, because Simon can just keep attacking. He doesn't need to worry about resolving any more spells with the board as it stands. And then if Andre does blink and decide to do something about this board, we know that there's the potential for a big old rally.
Exactly. So Andre needs to dig to that Crux of Fate most likely and have a counter spell backup. That's still the plan for Andre. I'm not sure there's another route to victory for him. We see I think he has a Dispel in hand, so he's got that part of the equation solved. Is there another way he can live without Crux of Fate? Let's say he gets rid of the Husk. That's still 3, 4, 5. That's only 6 damage, and he's at 7. So potentially gets to live one more turn. He does have Shambling Vents in play too, so he actually just can decide to block the Husk.
And I guess that there's also the threat of Jace flipping, flashing back Collected Company. There's a lot of different ways that Simon Nielsen can tax the counter magic of Andre Strasky if he so chooses.
So I guess Andre doesn't quite need the Crux of Fate as long as he has a couple other tools. And looks like we're back with more updates from the other quarterfinals.
Yes, well, the other quarter-final now, because you're watching the last one, and that is because Martin Muller of Denmark is a 2-0 winner over Gregor Kowalski of Poland. So Martin Muller is through. We're going to see some red-hot Rally the Ancestors action through to the semi-finals, and we'll see whether Lukas Blohon can do it all again with Esper Dragons against Rally the Ancestors.
I'm guessing it won't be quite the same way. I'm guessing
unlikely.
that Martin Muller got the message at the end of that last match.
Yes, Muller is currently talking with Magnus Lantto, and there may be some strategery involving 60 cards and things like that. So
good to know, good to know.
We'll see. All right, so that's it. You are watching quarterfinal number 4 right now.
Fantastic stuff. Jace in play now for Andrei Strasky, and we get a chance to see exactly how Simon Nielsen wants to navigate the next turn or two. He's got a lot of options open to him. Cracks a couple of fetch lands.
Oh, so we get a good look. Negate, Dispel. What else? Looks like maybe an ultimate price. Duress, which he chose not to play.
Yeah, Andrei Strasky has a lot of the tools.
Yeah, he must have something else because he decided not to play Duress. Which would have still left him was Dispel plus Negate mana up, but he figured it was maybe a bit redundant. He maybe actually wants Simon to tap out and plays those spells, make him like quote unquote waste his mana rather than play creature spells which he can't really interact with in a good way. So maybe strategic decision not to play the Duress.
And this looks like a Rally of the Ancestors for 2.
Yeah, end of turn rally would bring back at least a Jace, I think.
Definitely a Jace. It also looks like we have... can't quite see the other creatures in the graveyard there, but I'm guessing that there's more than just the Jace here.
Yeah, I can't quite recall. I mean, just a Jace would be not the greatest, but it's still a scry draw. Maybe he has another rally in hand and he's looking for something else. What else did he play this game that cost? I don't think he played a Visionary this game. All right, yeah, it's just. Oh, never mind.
Was there a token he sacked as well?
Yeah.
I missed that. I apologize.
All right, so that's a bit more interesting. That's scry 1, draw 2, and on his upkeep, he's gonna be able to scry the Grim Her Respects to scry 1 and draw 1 more card.
So first he scries. Turns out he's just drawing. There we go. So draws an Abzan Ascendancy.
That's interesting.
Absolutely
Gives him a lot of blockers for the Dragon Lord. But we know Andre is ready with the negate.
All right, so we get to the upkeep, and there's a few triggers going on here. Well, one important trigger going on, I suppose, really.
So Andre, I decided not to play the Duress. We could either have the mana to Dispel plus negate or Ultimate Price plus negate. Still kind of questionable. This probably was a pretty close decision. Now we're on Simon's upkeep.
Yes.
He's most likely gonna sack his. I'm not sure what he's thinking about.
I think he's potentially thinking about sacrificing another creature first to draw 2 cards.
Yeah, but then he doesn't get to scry, so I'm not really sure that's... So instead of scrying once and drawing once, he... Oh, that's right. Alright, the Sifter draws him 2 cards. So that makes sense.
Now he activates Jace. Finds a Duress. He's going to have to discard something, but that Duress is certainly a nice pickup.
Yeah, looks like the game's gonna go a couple extra turns. I think. Huh. It's gonna be interesting.
So Lantto Husk gets to flip Jace. This is still all with triggers on the stack, so now he sacrifices that Grim Haruspex that was going to get exiled. Draws a card. Now we get to the draw step. That's a pretty busy upkeep.
Yeah, and I think Simon is in a decent spot. He's gonna probably Duress, Ascendancy. Those two spells are gonna. Oh wow, no, he might be able to resolve Ascendancy because this spell's not gonna help Andre. He's gonna take the negate and get to resolve Ascendancy, which is huge for. Oh, never mind. He has Silumgar scoring too. So Simon's not going to be able to resolve Ascendancy right away.
Yeah, it's interesting. He's not going to be able to cast both of those counter spells this turn. He doesn't have enough blue mana, but one of them will definitely do the trick.
Yeah, so he's probably going to... He might just go with something like Elvish Visionary plus Nantuko Husk. Take the Scorn. And just play a bunch of... he needs to make sure he has blockers for the Shambling Vents. Not just die to Dragon Lord plus Shambling Vents attack. Takes the negate. Interesting. Not quite sure what's the logic behind that. Does he have...
I guess that by leaving the Scorn, it means that he can't cast Jace next turn. I think he's already got Jace in play, though.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't let him cast 2 counter spells this turn, like Dispel plus Negate, for instance, but I'm not sure he's going to give him a target for Dispel this turn anyways. Or is he? Now Simon can ultimate price the Husk, counter the other Husk, and buy himself a bunch of turns, hope to draw into more counter magic for Simon's key spells. Alright, Visionary. Alright, looks like Simon has his own Dispel, so that makes sense as to why he took the negate.
So the Visionary's in, we think.
I see an ultimate price in response. The Husk is already lethal. There was a bunch of creatures stacked on the upkeep. Yep, gets rid of the Husk, so that's gonna draw Simon a card. But
now
he
there's
gets
another card draw.
Yeah, gets rid of the sack outlet.
And here is Abzan Ascendancy.
Yeah, backed up by Dispel. But no more sack outlets, so Simon not able to produce a blocker for the Dragon Lord. He can if he wants to shrink it, but that's still a 2-turn clock since he's at 6 and the Dragon Lord's going to be attacking for free.
So maybe he's setting up for a big flashback from Jace next turn.
I don't know, I think Andre might somehow put it off, despite being in an awful spot earlier in the game.
Bit of an old-fashioned staring match going on here.
Yeah.
Currently, Abzan Ascendancy on the stack and Andre Strasky looking at the counter spell in his hand saying, I'd rather that doesn't resolve. Simon Nielsen, pretty insistent that it does, gets to put +1/+1 counters on his team, and from now on, whenever any of his non-token creatures die, he is able to put a 1/1 Flying Spirit token into play. So, as he called it, Dragon Lord Ojutai currently shrunk a little bit. It's just a 3/4. 3 enough to put a real hurt on Simon Nielsen's life total regardless.
Yeah, even of the Spirit Dragon, not what Andre was looking for.
If he'd had enough mana, it would absolutely have been what he was looking for, because, of course,
Yeah.
exiling things kind of what you want to be doing against the rally deck. Unfortunately, tapping out not what you want to be doing, and tapping out and then realising you don't have enough mana to cast the big planeswalker you want to cast, even worse.
So I feel like Andre should probably start by attacking his Ojutai, see what the Anticipate gets him, and go from there. But he's gonna take his time, think things through, because he needs to deal with what's on Simon's board. He also needs to have a counter spell backup for what's coming next turn. So the rest not gonna help him there because of the Jace flashback ability. Does he have the tools? Yeah, I think he just has to attack and hope something good comes up the top. I'm not even sure what that good is though. Maybe like auto-ending Grim Haruspex would be a start. He also needs a counter spell. He might just have to give him a flying token, just ultimate prize that Grim Haruspex, and give him a chum blocker for next turn. That was a quick pick. Silumgar's Corn, I believe.
So each player now on just 3 life, and Andre choosing to activate his Jace now, so foregoing the opportunity to do the old block and then activate flip. But this way around he does get to flashback something from his graveyard this very turn.
So counting his mana, checking to see if he needs the extra colorless from the Haven of the Spirit Dragon, or if he can afford to discard it.
And even if Andre Strasky wins this game, he's still got another one to win against a rally deck on the play.
Doing some math, trying to figure out how he's going to use his flip Jace, if he needs to cast another Jace to have a chum blocker.
And I'm right in thinking he's not yet discarded to his Jace.
That's right. So he needs to make sure he doesn't die. He needs to make sure he has at least one, ideally 2 counter spells for what's coming next turn.
So discards a Jace, flips the Jace in play. Planeswalker on board.
Starts at 5.
Ticks up.
So tough.
Elvish Visionary now a 0-2. So Strasky's saying, I either have a trick, or I'm going to block with Shambling Vents, or maybe both.
Yeah, so what he's trying to do is, his plan is to chum block Grim Haruspex, to not give Simon a token, and hope Silumgar's Corn plus Dispel is enough to prevent whatever Simon's going to do that turn, and just kill him with his Dragonlord Ojutai. So I don't know, I like it. I like his play. I like his line. We're gonna find out if it's enough.
Yeah, Simon Nielsen in a weird situation of he would quite happily do anything to kill one of his own creatures at some point in the next turn or so to give himself a blocker.
Yeah.
Let alone the cards he's going to draw and all of that sort of thing.
Yeah, and he had the option of getting rid of Ultimate Price when he arrests Andre, just to take a counter spell to be able to resolve the Ascendancy. Not saying it was wrong, but definitely something to think about. So what's in Simon's hand? I think it's a Jace. What, Jace not very useful right now. I guess maybe somehow if he gets 2 Jaces, and if he has 2 Jace in hand, he can abuse the Legend rule and get a token of the Ascendancy.
4 mana to get that Spirit token and draw a card, I guess.
Yeah, but that Jace can possibly flashback. Is the token white and black or just white? It's just white, I think.
It's just white.
So it can die to an ultimate price. Strasky was the chum block.
And gains a couple of life.
Is Dispel plus Scorn enough? That is the question. Oh, he has.
There's Jace number 1.
Yeah, he needs more than one though. Andre can deal with one blocker. It's Jace number 2. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, Andre doesn't care. So far, so good. Yeah, double checking he has an ultimate press in his graveyard. Probably gonna reread Absent Ascendancy. Maybe make sure it's a monocolor token. Might already know the answer. It doesn't hurt to double check.
While Khan's attack here was very much a multicolored block, the tokens that got made off Absent Ascendancy, I'm pretty confident are just white. The only multicolored spirits were the black-green ones created.
Yeah, you have to keep one, right? You can't just choose, oh, I want them to both die.
And you can say you want them to both die, but then someone turns around and says, no, you have to choose.
Andre's still thinking about it.
He's checking his sideboard.
Wonder what that was about. Why is he so worried about the first Jace? Did we misread his hand?
Looks like we are going to see Silumgar's go on here on that second Jace.
Huh.
So now there's the opportunity for Simon Nielsen to cast something.
What if he has a Husk now?
Why would
he counter? Why would he counter Jace when it's? Are we missing something? I mean, he still has him dead on board if he gets.
There's the potential for, and I guess he knows he can stop a collected company.
Yeah, but what if Simon's been sandbagging a Husk? It's like a disaster.
I
mean, I agree it's unlikely he has a Husk. He might have led with the Husk if he had one. Alright, and that's going to be game. Dispel. Wow. Andre found a way somehow in what looked like.
And the sweat's very real for Andre because, I mean, there's a lot of scary things that the Abzan Rally deck can do. So the Rally Ancestors deck can do. And this is his first GP top 8.
Yeah, those games are absurd, like, multiple times. I mean, we said it mostly the other way, like how the Rally deck managed to, you have the Esper player who has a Jace, who has a Dragon Lord Ojitai, even digging for time, and out of nowhere, they find the kill. And this time it's Andre who pulls it off somehow, and they're gonna go to a deciding game.
This time round, Simon Nielsen on the play. How important do you think that the play of the draw is in this matchup?
I think it's pretty important with cards like like an active Jace, for instance, getting better chance of having an active Jace. I think Andre has some copies of Complete Disregard in his main deck. No, he actually doesn't. Most of the other Esper decks do. He doesn't. So I was gonna say, for something like Complete Disregard, if you're on the play, you get to play Jace on turn 2, and then they don't get to remove it until you get a use or 2 out of it. Andre just have the free main deck ultimate price, has the Force one in his sideboard, and we saw he actually boarded out his Crux of Fate, so that's interesting. Definitely an interesting approach. Maybe he just decided Fate is not good enough. I'm not sure
often
about
the things
it.
that it's doing are not necessarily exactly how you want the game to play out, but I think sometimes it's just a necessary evil almost.
I feel like there was a lot of spots where Crux of Fate plus backup counterspell was his best play. That's what I was saying about that game actually, I think, but he found another, or it just was a spot removal and a lot of counterspells.
Big smiles on the face of Andre Stradsky there. very happy to pick up that win. I think that he knows that this matchup is one where it's pretty intricate. There's a lot of things that need to go right for him.
Yeah.
And any time that you win a close one, it feels all that much better.
Yeah. Thing is, his reasoning might be maybe he brought in like sub copies of Irish and Cleric, and sometimes even when you're facing down 4 or 5 creatures on the side of Simon, you'd rather have one Irish and Cleric than a Crux of Fate, because as long as you can keep Husk up the board, if he has this one Cleric soaking up a bunch of damage and keeping you alive long enough, what you don't want to do is like fill Simon Nielsen's graveyard, and that's kind of what he did that game. He got rid of the Husk, and we saw Simon no sacrifice outlet, couldn't trigger Abzan Ascendancy, couldn't draw more cards of the Grim Haruspex. So
it looks like in Andre Strasky's hand for this deciding game, he has infinite obliteration. That could be a big.
I think he had like 6 lands though. He had like 5 or 6 lands, and he, despite having one of the key cards in that matchup, didn't have the tools to go along. So decides to mulligan, which is like pretty rough, especially after sideboard when Simon brings in the Rest and Dispel. Every card really matters. We saw it that last game. Andre ended was 1 or 0 cards in hand.
Yeah, certainly not much extra gas in the tank when he pulled off his game to level things up here in this, our last quarterfinal match. Just to let you know how things went in our other matches, Magnus Lantto lost to Lukas Blohon, and indeed to himself, I suppose. Lukas picking up the first game, and then Magnus not remembering to put in his key checklist card for Jace, meaning that he presented a 59-card deck for Game 2. That game loss pushed him out. His teammate, Martin Müller from Denmark, he did win with Rally the Ancestors against Gregor Kowalski's Rappaport Abzan deck. There will not be any more Abzan in this top 8 though, because Antonio Castellani with a Taka Red took down Bart Van Etten's Abzan deck, and then we do have this final Rally the Ancestors Esper Dragons match. It seems like the teams in this tournament neatly engineered it so that all of the cabin crew guys were on the bottom half of the bracket, all of the Abzan Rally guys were all of the Rally Ancestors guys were on the top half of the bracket, that meaning that the opportunity to play each other don't come until later in the top 8. Now we're kicking things off. 6-card hand for Andre Strasky, 7-card for Simon Nilsson, and we get a chance to see how this final game in our quarterfinals plays out.
Yeah, I think Andre had to keep a subpar 6-card hand. He doesn't have white mana for his Cleric. I'm not sure. He has an island and a swamp as lands only. He had to scry a Dragonlord to the bottom. I don't think he has an ultimate price for a potential turn to Jace, so he's gonna I think he's hoping very hard right now to not see a turn to Jace, but here it is. Negate in his hand, Silumgar Scorn, Arishan Cleric.
And this is part of the reason why being on the play is big, right?
Yeah.
The ways that he had to stop Jace went down just a little bit, just because he wasn't going to have the opportunity to force spike effectively on turn 2 with Silumgar Scorn, or potentially just fully counter with a dragon in hand any early Jaces.
Yeah, this is gonna be rough for Andre. He's gonna need to start drawing perfectly off the top of his deck.
And to spell off the top of Simon Nielsen's deck means that he may have an answer to the first bit of counter magic coming from Andre Strasky.
Yeah, Simon's got to be feeling pretty good. He has a Jace active. He's gonna be able to resolve either a Husk or a Catacomb Sifter, most likely if he has it. He knows that there's no Clash of Wills in Andre's deck, so that's a key draw step. Is it a Plains? Is it a land for Andre?
It is a land, all basics. So from now on, his battle lands on either side of the board are going to be working out just fine. And as of yet, Andre Strasky has just had to look on as Simon Nielsen does his thing, and his thing includes Jace, Vryn's Prodigy, and Grim Haruspex. That graveyard gradually filling up. And it looks like there's a Zilliport Cutthroat in the future from Simon Nielsen, who, if he's going to cast it, is not going to be able to hold up mana for his Dispel.
Yeah, pretty sure there's no way to interact for Andre, though. He has a Scorn with no dragons. He has a Negate, which doesn't counterspell creatures. There's a bunch of okay cards, but none really matter right now. Finally, something that does something, and the rest, but it's not really getting him anywhere. It's still no white, still no. I don't know. It's going to be really rough.
At least the duress has some targets. There's a dispel. There is a collected company. Now, each of these interesting targets for different reasons. Which one do you think you'd be going for here?
Thing is, if you take the company, you let Simon know you have the. I mean, if you take the dispel, you let Simon know you have a counter magic for company, but I guess you don't really have a choice. I mean, regardless, if Simon wanted to, he could just activate Jace, discard, flip it, and he can target Dispel to make sure he has a counter magic, or he can just run company and just play it again next turn, which is not as time efficient, but it's more card advantage. Can Andre do it again?
That looked like another collected company off the top, which is not going to be a good one for Andre Strasky's chances here.
Yeah, and he's facing damage. Now there's a Jace. Jace is sticked up. And yeah, Simon's going to take his time. Just say go. Cast the company on the end of Andre's turn. And his deck's just teasing him. Just 2 out of 2 Haven. Still no white mana.
I mean, even if that had just been another blue source, he would have had access to negate plus Silumgar's Scorn rather than just the one counterspell.
Yeah.
So the first collected company gets hit by negate. That one Andrej knew about. Attacks put him on single digits.
I think you just want to say go and play it on Andre's end of turn. Again, you don't want to get blown out by anything like, let's say Andre drew another negate, he gets to negate, then untap, drops the Dragon Lord, and now he goes for it main phase.
Yeah, I mean that's the flashback one, so he still has one in hand that Andrej does not know about. Successfully gets a second Teleport Cutthroat and Jace in play.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with Simon's play to play it on his turn. I'm not sure there's a real upside. I think playing it on Andre's upkeep is almost strictly all upsides, unless he has his 1 copy of Scatter the Winds, which he can cast in his upkeep but couldn't cast during Simon's turn because he only had 1 blue mana available.
As things stand, though, Simon Nilsson close to just being able to win with straightforward attacks and not needing to do a great deal more.
Yeah, has to be pretty frustrating for Andre. Not getting to play a real game of Magic, but it happens.
Yeah, he's got the Arashin Cleric in hand, but not the ability to use it. Jace giving something flashback. I'm guessing it must be that Dispel.
Yeah, he can't even cast a Dig free time. Just wasn't able to cast his spells. Didn't draw a single fetch land. Couldn't fuel a Delve. Just an unfortunate game.
Jace tapping, drawing a Rally the Ancestors. Grim Haruspex being discarded.
Yeah, Simon getting full value of his Jaces. Just got to flashback. 2 spells was his first Jace. Now getting to flip the second one.
Collected Company meets Silumgar's Scorn, which in turn is dispelled.
Oh, he's actually running the 4 spike Dispel, and Simon almost. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter much. He was like, he was gonna Dispel it, and he was like, nah, I guess I'll just pay 1 and save my Dispel.
And there is a Nantuko Husk. That powering out the ability with those little cutthroats to do things. Andre Strasky kind of does the sad version of still had all these.
Yeah, still had all these breaks.
Yeah. And that the end of our last quarterfinal. Let's give you a quick recap of how things went in our quarterfinals before we take a quick break in turn getting ready for our semi-finals. First up, we had